everyone, and welcome back for another episode of The Bright Side of Life. You guys know me. I am your host, Melissa Bright, and today I have Dr. Chris Lee on. Who is he? He is an executive coach and a consultant, and he specializes in neuroscience, self-regulation, and stress management. So you can only guess what we're going to be talking about today. Don't worry, I have all the questions for him about burnout, motivation, laziness, all this kinds of stuff. So without further ado, Chris, welcome to the Bright Side of Life. How are you?
I'm dandy. Happy Eclipse Day to everyone. We're recording this on Eclipse Day, which is either going to be like the greatest thing on the face of the earth or the world's going to crumble down. And I don't think there's a middle ground. So no, I'm doing just delightful and fantastic today. Thank you. And I'm excited for this talk.
I am so excited for this talk. I just have so many things to say, but I know we're on a limited time. So why don't we start by you telling me a little bit about your story and how you came to do, yeah, I know, just a little bit, just like a little bit.
Yep. Yeah.
How you came to do the work that you do now.
Complete total accident, to be completely honest with you. So if I looked back and we all like kind of have that like middle school experience of like, what do you want to be? Like, I'm going to be a professional soccer player. I'm going to like, ride mountain bikes or whatever the heck that it is. It was nowhere near this at all. I knew when I was in a younger age that I didn't like to be told what to do. I knew that for sure. Like worked at a Little Caesars and they're like, you got to be there at this time. And I was like, I don't like that. Like that didn't feel right when like my living expenses are Slurpees and like chain lube for my bike. Like, what's the point of me going to work to suffer so that I can buy things to suffer more with? Like, I feel like that's not it. And I always had that narrative running in my head. So my next job after that, I worked at a foam factory, and I wasn't working on the floor. I actually became part of the executive team at like 16 years old, which is like another wild and crazy story. I built out a quality control portion of that and developed SOPs at a really young age. I didn't know what I was doing, but I figured it out. That's a whole nother story. But this journey into stress management and neuroscience really evolved from kittens and rainbows and cotton candy dreams. When I was, which is a total lie, I just got 2x4 to the back of the head with trauma in a really short period of time. And I had a ton of questions that I went after. So my journey of this really started in 2016. So 2016, in a matter of 6 months, I got hit by a car riding my bike back from school. I just finished up a neurophysiology midterm. I was super broke because I was in my doctorate and it's coming back from this midterm and I was like going to treat myself. So I went to Walmart and it was like, right after like Easter. So like, dark chocolates 50% off and you get like $1 bottle of wine and all that good stuff. And I was going to go home and watch pirated Netflix from my neighbor's Wi-Fi. It was just going to be an amazing Friday. And I got smoked by a black SUV that blew a stop sign, like hit into a ditch, like lifted up and thrown. They didn't stop. Homeless dude found me and basically like I walked myself home. My brother, who was also good at his doctorate, took me to the hospital and like they were like, yeah, you got hit by a car. So like stay in bed for a long period of time. Ton of issues, ton of this, ton of that. And that was where my physical body got just destroyed because it'd been super healthy up until then.
Yeah.
I was 22 at that time.
Okay.
Fast forward about a month and I get a phone call that it destroyed my life. And not to get into the details of the phone call and things like that. My dad committed suicide in September and it wrecked me out of nowhere. Like my brother and I were supposed to go there for a barbecue because he moved down to Atlanta where my brother and I were doing school. And it was like, things were okay. I knew he was going through a dark time, but we just got a call. We're like, yeah, your dad's not really here anymore. Which sucks. That sucks really hard.
Yeah.
And me and my brother were in our early 20s and don't know what to do with those feelings. You don't know what to do like as a man to feel those feelings. So it's like, do I drink them down or do I like work them out or like, do I do therapy or all of these different things? But it just wrecked me. And the grieving process it's been a never ending journey. And I'm to a state now where I have so much gratitude, for these types of things. And I heard a quote that if anybody, just super quick tangent, has ever gone through loss like that, loss and grief is love left on the table.
Yeah.
And that's like, oof, when I heard that. So whenever I get a moment to like talk about my dad or how sad that that was, I get to do that because it's just a way that I can show him how much I love him still.
Yeah.
3 months after that, I found out that I was going to be a dad in my super early 20s. So all that happened in a really short period of time. I had no job. I was 3 years from graduating with my doctorate. I was screwed. So my daughter gets born, and then shortly after my daughter's born, um, I was suddenly not just a dad, but I was a single dad. So
Mm.
it's me and my daughter trying to figure out all of this by ourselves. And like, I don't know how to parent. I don't even know how to pay my taxes. Like I don't know how to like, do anything. And I'm just like, I'm struggling so hard. I hate myself. I hate the world. Everything feels unfair. Like I was never like a really good student, but like school's like impossible now because I'm like trying to feed my daughter and then I'm trying to get like an hour of sleep. And then I got boards coming up and I got residency and this and this and this and this and this.
Ugh.
And I was just such in this deep dark hole that I was like, what's the point? And it started to get dark. And then the
Mm.
darkness started to like feel like home. And then I started to get
Mm.
scared because I was like, oh, this kind of feels okay to be like, I hate myself this much. Then I was like, holy crap. Like, this is terrifying. Like, my mom still lived up in Michigan and she came down as much as she possibly could to help me out. And like, but like, everyone just looked at my life and they were like, dude, good luck. Like, we don't expect a lot from you. Like, how
Mm.
can I help you? Like everyone was just like, holy crap, dude, you don't, that's a life's worth of shit, like
Right.
50 pounds of shit in a 10-pound bag.
Yeah.
Um, and that's where it was. So to where I am today, I own three separate companies. I run one of the most high high success rate consulting firms that are out there because we have a guarantee to our clients and our executive coaching clients that if they don't get biometric results, you get a full refund. And I have only ever had to do that one time because the person had a drug addiction.
Ah,
And yeah, so between like the 5,000 people that I've consulted and on social media, the media company, we speak to over 2 million people a month. We do all of these different things. My daughter is now 6 years old. I turned 30 last year and she's thriving. Her name's Phoenix, and you're like, that's a badass name. She's a badass little girl.
yes.
And she's thriving, and I get to be the dad that I never had. Not that my dad was
Mm.
bad, but he
Right.
was doing his best. He's a 90s dad, and I get to be somebody that gets to be emotionally connected and imperfect and make mistakes and eat pizza and Cherry Garcia on the kitchen floor sometimes because I get sad. And I just try to be as authentic as possible and process what's real for me so that I can make room for the better things in life. Because I've had so many bad things happen that if I can make it through some of those things to get where I am now, that hopefully my story could be an inspiration for other people.
Holy crap, Chris, do we have so much stuff in common? Um, First of
See, I
all,
love to hear it. And then I'm also like, all right, let's let's talk. Let's be about it.
okay. Well, first of all, I want to say sorry for your dad's loss because that is sometimes I feel like suicide is just a double whammy for obvious reasons. But you were younger for whatever reason. No offense, I thought you were older. I think it's
Oh,
all the
thanks.
knowledge you have up in your noggin that I'm like, oh, he's probably my age, but no, you're 8 years younger. Anyway, um, I lost my mom whenever I was 25, COPD from smoking, but I had a daughter when I had my daughter when I was 16. So
Mm,
whenever I lost my mom, like even though I had 10 years, like from when my daughter was born till when I lost my daughter's now 10. She's going to like her teenage years. So I'm
right.
like, I can't lose my biggest support system. What am I supposed to do? Like, so you literally were saying all this stuff. Like, you're like, I don't know what to do with my taxes. I don't know what to do this. Like, I never thought that losing my mom was going to make me question my self-worth more than anything. Like, it was like, I don't feel like this adult. Like, I thought I had my shit together at 25, but like, lose your parent, and then it'll be like, guess what? You
Etch a
don't.
sketch.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So we share some similarities in that, but and I knew your story from watching your video. Sometimes I don't like knowing too much stuff, but I was intrigued, so I kept watching. But there is a reason why, like, I love having people on my podcast and sharing, like, what they've been through and what you've managed to achieve, overcome, all this stuff so people can see that, like, it really can happen and it's possible, and you have done that clearly. Um, so why don't you tell me, like, what are your kind of clients that you help in terms of stress management, self-regulation? Like, what are they coming to you for?
Yeah. So I work with, and I've got this like, this is one of the parts that worked really hard on. I help type A overachieving perfectionists that are stressed, burnt out, lack clarity, don't know where to go or where to begin, put a pin on the map and create a destination. And then I walk the journey with them.
Wow.
And that entire process is essentially taking people that have started a business and they're at 6, maybe 7 figures,
Mhm.
and they have gotten the clairvoyance at some point in their life to say that I am the limitation of this company's growth and my own impact onto the world. And then we take that idea, and I have systems for these types of things that are outside of the realm of like classical personal development. I have like SOPs, I have systems, and I have strategies, and I have data driven results, which for a lot of things like mindset are weren't really achievable. But with things like I use it like Aura Ring, and I could use different types of testing for people to use biometrics. And then the big thing for me is I don't want my clients to have to need me beyond a certain point, but
Right.
I'm really great at different strategies. So if they want to keep me around to help do that, it's beyond understanding self-regulation. Because once you understand self-regulation and the blueprint of why your nervous system does certain things, you're the scientist of your own life. You're the captain of your soul, all of those different things. Beyond that, it's just optimization and pattern recognition, which is a skill. And once you start that skill development, it doesn't stop, right? A mind expanded can never go back to its original dimensions.
Nope.
And I so firmly believe that. So the clients that I work with are either trying to scale their impact in business, trying to regain or shift personality from a season that no longer suits them, that's built with limitations, and let
Mhm.
go and release that, work on stress and start to recalibrate where they're at, or a combination of that with their own teams. So I also work as a culture consultant. So I'll go in and I'll start to reestablish stress management protocols for HR companies. We'll start to go through and we'll start to incentivize insurance companies to build in HR initiatives that are focused on self-regulation again, which are gigantic corporate tax cuts for people as well. So I go through and it seems like, oh my gosh, what are all those things? We're working on letting people be people again,
Mm.
like that at the basics of it, right? Because like if you really want a company to like thrive, let people express their innate genius in a space that they feel safe to be seen, validated for who they are, and accepted for the mistakes that they make. If you can build a company that has that as their innate culture, they will blow through the competition and probably inherit them and take them over and comfort them and then
Right.
onboard them and scale again.
Holy crap. I don't think I knew that you did all of this. Jeez. You've
I'm
been
bad. I'm
busy.
bad at marketing. I'm really bad at marketing.
No, you're not bad.
I'm great at telling stories and like sharing tips and strategies, but people are like, you have a consulting company, or you have a
That's how
media
I
company, and you have an executive coach. What, how, what are you doing? Like, and like the company logos are all unicorns because my daughter loves unicorns. So it's just like, I don't know. I think it's
Oh my
funny.
gosh. That is funny. Okay. So I think before I've watched your videos for so long, but I'm telling you, when we like grow, like what I saw from you, like even 2 months ago, which I've been following you a lot longer than that, but we were supposed to have our episode a couple, however long ago, to
Oh,
like now, your shit landed differently for me now. And I can tell you why. I just read, do you know who Britt Frank is? She's also a
no.
neuroscientist.
Britt Frank, maybe. Did you send me her something? No, I
No.
don't. I don't know
So
that book.
she wrote The Science of Stuck. Yeah,
I love
unique.
it.
Yeah, but it's not, I mean, I can guarantee you know all this stuff in it. But yeah, when you learn more stuff like about the brain, you're like, "Oh my God." So, where was I going with this story? What was I going to say? Why do we start, we being people, if we feel like we can't figure it out or we feel burnt out, overwhelmed, we can say whatever. Why are you wanting to start at self regulation? And what exactly does that mean? I know what it means, but I'm asking for my listeners.
Yeah, definitely. So I realized that in my life that through all the crap that I was doing, I started doing like a lot of mindset work. And I
Mhm.
was like, okay, my life sucks. If I tell myself that my life is better, that makes a lot of sense. And it started off with the law of attraction and stuff like that, which I think a lot of people start in that because it's like,
Yep.
yeah, like the universe is like punishing me because I think I'm deserving to be punished. So if I can
Mhm.
change that narrative, then maybe the universe will give me that back type of
Yeah.
thing. So I think a lot of people get started in that world. And while I think that there's some validity to it, I think the underlying current of it all has to do with the emotional and mental cognitive dissonance that you're sending out to the universe. So if you're mentally saying that I am dry and you're in the middle of a tsunami, those two things do not compute. So you get pattern interference and nothing gets sent out. So you get stuck, right? Like you're
Mm.
asking for the wrong tool at the right time. And the example that I say so often is stop throwing yourself in the middle of summer blacktop, expecting for that environment to support you in growing. Like if you try to plant an entire field on like an airport strip of cement and concrete in the middle of the desert sun,
Right.
it's just going to burn up and fizzle. So recognizing that the environment is what actually lets ideas nurture and grow, and it just naturally doesn't allow weeds to be grown inside of that, or they're better recognized. That was the thing that allowed me to shift and pivot. So when people say that, oh my gosh, I have rumination, or oh my gosh, I just can't seem to get out of this rut, I say, you know what we're going to do? We're not going to work on that at all. What we're going to do is just get you regulated. And what regulation really means is that your nervous system is in an optimized state to take action and understand its consequences. So take action and understand its consequences. So we always think that self-regulation is always down regulating because we're all so stressed, but
Mm.
what it really is bringing you back to that state of homeostasis where you recognize choice and positives and negatives of each of those choices. So if you're over-regulated, you're in that anxious state, always go, 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 go. Vagal nerve overstimulated and your digestive system starts to make an impact. The whole body starts to shut down. Or if you're down regulated, what you need is up regulation. So you need things that are stimulatory. So starting to understand self-regulation is just building the blueprint for what's your natural state based on the things that have happened to you, and how do we get you back into that optimal zone so that your thermostat for where you want to be to take action and feel motivated is simple, it's easy, and it's not contingent on external environments, it's contingent upon internal environments. And that's very much something that we can measure. So like
Mm.
Oura Ring, Whoop Strap, things like that, we can optimize that. And those numbers are really cool. But when we talk about, well, how do we get to those numbers? There was really not a whole lot of literature or systems or strategy besides, well, you need to meditate, you need to journal, you need to get good sleep. So what I did in my life is I said, okay, all that's really great, but can I 80/20 a lot of these things? Can I take something that's going to have a downstream effect and then it ripple through? So I started to look at like Maslow's, I started to look at like Williamson and like psychology and all of the other things on top of all the additional school that I did in neuroscience, functional neurology, medical neuroscience, doesn't matter. I took all those and I just said, great, can I use this in my life? If I don't work personally right now on my mental health, how much I hate myself, how much I miss my dad, how scared I am to be a dad, like my complete and utter lack of self worth. If I just start to take small increments of making my physiology and my nervous system more receptive to change, is that change?
Mm.
Right. And there's this quote of like doing it scared when you don't feel brave is still bravery. Right. So I started to work, and these are the four platforms that I work with, like pretty much everyone. And there's the fifth one that we're working on. So physical, sleep, diet, exercise; mental, certainty, predictability, scheduling; emotional, which is somatics, emotional intelligence, and embodiment. And then there's social, which is community, culture, and communication. And then the fifth one is purpose and action, basically. So that purpose and mission last one is something that we worked on for business owners and things like that. So I worked on sleep, diet, exercise, and habit formation as a starter. And then
Mm.
I started to feel like 50% better just getting good sleep. And then
Yeah.
after that, I started to work on, well, what are the stories? What are the narratives? What is my system getting reactive towards? Because the system is not triggered, it's just reactive, right? So it says, if this, then that, 1 plus X equals 2, the X must equal 1, right? So if I can change that predictive pattern, it's awesome. And then once I change that predictive patterns, emotions are not random. They're also responses to our mental environment. And now that I'm in control of that mental environment, the emotions that are being met that don't match the environment anymore require integration. So now I work on safety and emotional intelligence and being able to sit in my shit, being able to sit. And then I move on to, all right, I need to do that with myself. And then I also can't be in a vacuum. I need to do that with and through other people as well. And that's where culture, community, and communication come from. And they all go simultaneously together. So once we get those pieces kind of working and flowing together, people just get these like, I didn't even like work on rumination and overthinking, but I feel insanely better. Like I feel so much
Yeah.
better now. Like I have a client he's 60 years old. He's been doing so much mental emotional work for such a long time. Can't get
Mhm.
through. He's stuck at 8 figures in his company, which is great, right? He's like, I
Right.
just can't do this. And I just feel so stuck. And I'm like, sweet. We're only going to work on sleep, diet, exercise, and mental framing, which is certainty and predictability, period. And he's like, in the first 3 months, he said, I did more in that 3 month period of time because the environment could actually stick my ideas that I wanted than I've been doing in the last 10 years of therapy. Right. Which is why, like, I work with so many therapists in like pain management clinics and things like that, because if we can get the environment right, it suits the growth of all the tools that we're trying to use. And that's why this type of thing for me has been so powerful.
You are blowing my mind. Okay. You said something and I literally can't write fast enough. Okay, homeostasis. That is the ideal place to be at. Like that's where we want to
Mhm,
be.
mhm.
Well, then we have shit that happens to us that
Guaranteed.
yeah. So after you've had stuff like happen to you, say, okay, for me, like I've done therapy, I've done a lot of
Yeah,
like self-regulation stuff. I'm going to give you an example of me just cuz it's the easiest thing to do.
of course.
But I struggle hardcore with what I think is chronic fatigue.
Yeah.
Um, I lived in debilitating anxiety for about 9 years until I got a therapist and I realized, oh, like literally it's in my body. That's what's happening. So, my question to you is what is like my baseline? Because I feel regulated. I don't experience anxiety anymore
Yeah.
ever. I cannot not feel tired. I feel tired the second. I will feel tired in 6 a.m. when I wake up. What do I got to get back to?
I mean, like, raise a hands. How many people listening like have this exact same thing where
Yeah.
it's like, so my personal experience, then excuse me, I'll kind of share some of the science on this. We think once we start the healing journey, one of the things that I invite so many people to is to consider, am I actually tired or am I relaxed? Because if you've been living in anxiety for such a long period of time, when you relax, it becomes scary. And then when scary needs control, we put labels on it to say that I'm exhausted, to let the relaxation never slow us down. Because if I stop, people get hurt, or if I stop, I lose control. So I always let
Mm,
people think and consider about that for a second. Are you actually tired or are you just relaxed? Right. Because
okay.
especially if you've been living in high anxiety or you've been in a high performance job or you got kids, right? Like relaxing feels like this ain't right.
Right.
So if the relaxing thing kind of hits for you, the second thing that I start to consider is great. Out of those four buckets of self regulation that we talked about, physical, mental, emotional, social, they compensate for one another. So if you're
Mm,
physically exhausted, all of those buckets all become a part of how you feel subjectively and objectively. So if you're getting good sleep, your nutrition is super clean, awesome. Now we move on to mental framing. Are the stories in your head, if you told them to a kid, would CPS be called because they're so horrific? Do we need to work
mm,
on that mental framing? Do we need to work on the certainty and predictability principles? Outside of that, if we have that aspect put in place, are those ideas that we've placed that feel authentic to you now competing with the emotional stories inside of your body? Because when those two things battle, that creates burnout. And the exhaustion of that burnout of living two lives, the one that is real and the one
mm.
that feels real, that's cognitive dissonance. So if you live two authentic lives, but they compete for which one is true, because two things can be true at the same time, now we have to put ourselves in that optimal state of choice of which one do I want to be in, because so many people get exhausted because they live in a limbo of indecision. I kind of live this life and I kind of live this life, and they live two lives at one time. And no wonder you're exhausted. You're living the lives of 10 people, right? Outside of that, once we get beyond that, we say, all right, so that one's regulated. The stories match the feelings that you're creating inside of your body. Do other people respect that version of you that's now showing up? Because now, if you can be authentic to yourself in the vacuum of your own head and in your own house, is that true when you go out in public as well? Or do we need to start to like clip through and see what is and is not real for other people too? So we get all of these different opportunities to say, what's the pattern recognition? And there's always like, we can go bottom up or top down on a lot of these things. It just depends what is on fire. Because if you're truly, truly exhausted, something in your life is like on fire. And we kind of got to take stock and inventory to see what that is.
And it can't just be, can it just be, oh, you like your brain over, because everything that
Overstimulated, underregulated. Yeah.
okay. Can you talk a little bit more about the certainty and predictability part? Because in
Yeah.
one of your videos, you were talking about the space between, you were talking about a little bit self-sabotage. And I don't know if this is the same thing, but like timing and like when you do it, the time it.
Yeah. 1000%. I got
Okay.
you. So to tie in the exhaustion,
Mm-hmm.
your brain will anchor on to a familiar hell more frequently and easier than it will to an unfamiliar habit, right? So your brain will always bet on certainty because it is an efficiency exchange machine. So it's a meaning making machine, it's an efficiency exchange machine, and it's basically looking for pattern recognition. That's what
Okay.
your brain is really, really great at. And
Yeah.
those three things together are purely looking for predictable, certain patterns, right?
Okay.
So if you've been living in a fight, flight, freeze, stress response for an extended period of time, and that is a really easy path for you to go, if you're really easy, like reactive in situations, makes a lot of sense. Your brain has put in a lot of energy and effort to wire those neurons together. And the way that it wires it, it wraps a fatty layer around it called myelin. And that myelin makes the pathway go faster. So the more that you use that pathway, the more the brain goes, well, this pathway needs to be faster. And this pathway needs to be faster and faster and faster until it's so fast that you don't even need to think about it. It's not even in your conscious control. And we will say that it's gone subconscious, below
Yeah.
awareness, right? Like you tie your shoes because you've done it so many times that whatever, you start your car and you're like, how the heck did I even get my seatbelt on? It's subconscious. You've done it so many times. The system doesn't need that calibration anymore. So
Yeah.
with things like that, we start to make and shift that pivot by placing in new certainty and expectations and or standards and or principles and or values. And the way that that manifests inside of the world of like mental framing, that second platform, is to say New Year's Eve comes and New Year's resolutions fail within 2 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though the gym is healthy, eating good is healthy, why is it that we sabotage? Well, the brain is so used to those old patterns, and you've made such a dramatic change in such a short period of time that it is more exhausting for your brain to break that old pattern, even though in the long term, it's going to be a more energy efficient pathway. When your brain is stressed, it can't really see past the next couple of days or the next couple of hours. So even in 3 months, if you're going to hit the gym or you're going to break up with that person that's toxic, your brain goes, well, if I lose that, then I don't, what's going to happen? And if I don't know what's going to happen, then I'm for surely going to die. Like we've been getting our resources and certainty and predictability and information and safety, all of those things from this person or this circumstance, or, smoking a bowl and eating a pizza every night. Like if I get rid of those things, then like, who am I? What am I to do? And what we get to do instead is say, hey, so where I'm currently at, if I maintain this pathway, the guarantee is that my life is going to be fantastically mediocre, right? And you don't deserve to live a mediocre lifestyle. So if I want less of that, what is the opposite of what that looks like in 3 months from now? So if I had a really successful 3-month period of time, what are the things that I think that I would be doing? And you say, well, okay, so if I'm really tired and exhausted, I would love to have more energy. Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think is stealing most of your energy right now? And then we start to break those things down. And then eventually we get down and say, all right, so the thing that's stealing your energy is that there's so much uncertainty. You have so much free time and unscheduled overstimulation time, which everybody pulls up the black box of their phone. overstimulation and doom scrolling is extremely mentally and emotionally taxing. Like your attention span gets deviated, like it messes up a ton of shit in your life, right? So great.
Yeah.
We know that you're overstimulated and that's exhausting. Now, what we want to do is take something low stimulation, high effort, high reward. If you can get
Okay.
attached to the high effort, high reward type of thing, and then celebrate that. And this is like the habit formation portion that
Yep.
everybody forgets. We want to turn into a habit, trigger, behavior, reward. So we have to ask the question to ourselves, is the juice worth the squeeze? And then you, in the power of your brain, when it's regulated, have to say, if I maintain this for a 3-month period of time, if I go for 10-minute walks every morning in the sunshine and drink some water, will that make positive change? Will I be a different person? And every single time that you go on that walk in the morning, you tell yourself, I am different today versus yesterday because. And all
Mm.
the time, your brain is saying, oh, that was worth it. Right. You gave me some awareness. You gave me some new data to say that that was worth it. So awesome. I'll put some more myelin on that pathway for you. And then it takes myelin from the old pathway and then it moves it back to the new one. So over time, what people start to recognize is that once you get over the big, scary start,
Mm-hmm.
you get to that 49, 51% mark. And then eventually the new choices that you make are no longer terrifying or scary, or I have no idea what's going on. Instead, you get that kind of, ooh, oh, it's kind of easy to make this choice now, right? Because
Yeah.
you've given yourself the certainty, predictability, and schedule to know what you're doing, when you're doing it, and how to execute on it consistently. So, like in the morning time now, I wake up and I meditate, and it's not a question anymore. It's just what my
Right.
system does.
Yep.
And now I can place deeper emotional intention into how I choose to experience those things. And all of that is because I did regulation work. So the mental framing that we always want to jump to is
Mm-hmm.
because and works because I have an environment that actually can nurture those types of insights.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
All the things all at one time.
All the things. I'm not overstimulated in any kind of way. No,
Okay.
you're doing great. You're doing great. Okay. How much time do you have left?
Like 20 minutes.
Oh, perfect. Okay. So, what do you suggest then? And I know you probably said it there in those sentences. Are you suggesting that like small changes are better than like
1000%. Thousand percent. So like I get asked a lot of the time, like, how did you go from oh shit to hell yeah?
yeah.
And it was 1% a day. That's it. That's like all it is. The things that have taken me to like the furthest reaches of my mind and my life and that let me be hopefully a decent dad. I'm a good dad. I'm not going to say I'm a decent, I'm a great dad. Right. And like, it's one of those things that I'm like learning to own. Like I'm a just good version of that. It's because I have 3 non-negotiables that I do every single day. Right.
Mhm.
Number one, I take care of my physical body. So movement. The second thing, I need to take care of my mind. So mindfulness. And the third thing that I do is good ideas in, good ideas out. So I read every single day. Now, the thing with these non negotiable habits is that you can do them all in 30 seconds apiece, right? So if I need to move my body, I'll do 30 seconds of jump squats, right?
Mhm.
If I need to like do something for my mind, I'll journal on a sticky note for 30 seconds. Literally, these are from Publix, and I'll write down 30 seconds worth of journaling, right? And it's a
I love it.
BIG exercise. What do I believe in myself today? What is my I intention? And G, what is my goal? And what am I grateful for? You can do all of those in 30 seconds. I promise you. Then the last thing that I do is education. I can read a quote from something and just say, I am going to ponder this quote today. I can do all those things in 90 seconds. So
Yeah.
I choose not to, but for
Right.
parents, shit happens, right?
Right.
But every single day I do those things. And those are the small changes because I have so much evidence now built up over 7 years of this that like the evidence that I can do things that are hard is so high that my motivation to go do
Mm.
it, even when it's not there, I have inertia. I have momentum. So it's
Right.
like, oh, when I can't, I know I can because I've always have. Right.
Yeah.
So, and the biggest thing is day one's the hardest because once you get to day two, you can look back and say, well, I did it yesterday and I felt amazing. So I can do it again today. Right.
Yeah.
Or I did it yesterday and the way that I like felt was hard, but like it feels good to have accomplishment. Right.
Yep.
And you can continue to stack those things over and over and over again.
Mm. I had one of those aha moments in the last couple months. I've had my podcast since like 2020, and throughout the whole time I've missed maybe, I don't know, like probably 10 or 15 like times that was during a really bad breakup. But I've been pretty damn consistent, and that's always been the goal.
Mhm.
But there was another part of my life where I wasn't consistent on, and it came to me one morning. I'm like, "Melissa, you have managed to have Monday interviews for the last 3 years, except for this little time you took off. Why do
Yeah.
you think that you couldn't do this thing that you're wanting to do?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "It's just something different, and the brain's trying to talk me out of it and all that,
Yeah.
like you were saying, and I can do it, and people can do it. They've done other stuff that they've managed to stick to or whatever, but I really like the 1% because people always think they have to go balls to the wall, and they don't.
Yeah. You really don't. Like, I think that there's a season for that type of stuff.
Yeah,
Um, and I haven't really like I've experienced some seasons of like I'm gonna really get after it this month, but it's not often,
yeah,
right? Like if I know that if every day I make one or two pieces of content, I share that and then I spend some time doing like outreach and connecting with people because like my social channels are genuinely built. I just want to educate people. I want one
yeah,
person to get a tool that they feel like hope that they can make change. Like that's my goal
yep,
every single day. And that's been
yep,
my goal for forever. So like when I say like I suck at marketing, it's because it's not the goal of those media platforms for me. And like the people
mhm,
that want to come into my groups and like want to do executive coaching or consulting, they always seem to find me and my businesses are doing fine. Right.
yeah,
So I
yep,
believe in that model and it's working really well for me. Could I, make 8 figures and do all the other things? Probably. I probably
right,
could, but like the most important things for me in my life, like my priorities right now are like, I'm never going to get the opportunity to be a dad to a 6-year-old girl again. Right.
yeah,
So
yeah.
like her and I, for sure, we're going to play hooky and go paddleboarding. I'm going to skip my Friday meetings because like it's sunny and it's beautiful and she's not going to get the opportunity and she's not going to remember a random April, 6th. Well, no, she
Right,
is going to remember that we went paddleboarding and we saw manatees and
yeah,
dolphins. And then we went and got donuts. That's what she's going to remember.
yep,
Right. And like we had so much fun and we laughed and we giggled and we got sunburned and we took a nap in the backyard. And I'm like, that's the stuff that I hope she remembers.
yeah,
Right. And that's the stuff that's meaningful and valuable to me. There's going to be a season when the business, blows up in scales, and it already is at that point. But if I just maintain trajectory, the 1% compounds,
mm,
right? And what
yeah,
people think is that the 10% compounds, but the 10% compounding requires you to have 9 other people also compounding their 1% on top of yours. So unless
mm.
you have one of those big teams, I think I mean, there is no right way to go do it, but the way to ensure your growth mentally, emotionally, and financially is impact consistently over time.
You're speaking my language because I tend to get really, really overwhelmed, and I've now realized that something that's holding me back in my coaching business is like, if it all of a sudden takes off, like, am I gonna have the energy resources to, like, do this? Can I keep up with everything that I'm juggling,
Uh,
my part-time job, my podcast? Like, that's a legit, like, do I have the energy to be able to do all this?
I ask people that question when I do like consultations for coaches and stuff like that. I'm like, if I give you 1,000 people right now, are you okay?
Oh,
Like if I give you 1,000 clients, paying clients right now, would your life change? Because the way that I have my business set up, if I had 1,000 clients, it would still be a Monday for me. I know exactly what to do with them. I know how to onboard them. I have systems, I have SOPs, I have strategies. And it would just be a simple means of like letting them settle where they are because all the systems, all the strategies,
mm,
they're just stacked up. So I would show up, I would still do my workshops, I would still make time for as many of them as I possibly can. But
yeah,
my boundaries are my boundaries, right?
right,
Boundaries are the things and the schedules and the consistency. The discipline is my freedom, right? So if I had a
yeah,
1,000 people, I'm not going to not go paddleboarding and get donuts with my daughter. I'm not going to like give up cappuccinos and croissants on Saturdays and Sundays. I'm not going to, no way. You cannot touch those things. Now for $1 million, can you touch those things?
yeah. Mm, such a great point. What are your thoughts about about overwhelm? Like, what's happening really with overwhelm in our brain? Well, you already said it once, but remind me again.
Yeah, of course. So I think the way that I understand overwhelm now is that there's such a spectrum of choices, and so many of them are good, or we're so stressed that all of them seem bad, that overwhelm is us in a limbo of indecision. So we just choose to not. It's a freeze response, because
Mm,
what stress, overwhelm, and overstimulation all want more than anything else, like if they were a person, the only thing that they want from you is to maintain status quo. Don't change, don't shift, don't pivot, don't do anything, because the moment that you change, uncertainty is going to creep at the door. And if uncertainty creeps at the door, that uncertainty could be good, but because your amygdala is way faster than your frontal cortex, chances are your brain's not going to say that it's good out of the gate. And because that amygdala is so much faster, it's going to say this change is bad, which is why things like certainty and scheduling, habit formation, that's catching those thoughts and saying, dang, I caught myself like calling myself a piece of trash today and that I wasn't worth what my business is worth and all of these other things. Where did that come from? So
yeah.
my pattern recognition now is making sure that things that slip through the cracks and that are trying to
Mhm.
point the finger at me to be less than I am don't overwhelm and compound my subconscious and eventually burst out when things get dysregulated, because I know the dysregulation is guaranteed. So
Yeah.
every single day I go fishing for things that aren't going to serve me. And at the end of the day, I do, what did I learn? What did I love? What do I need to let go of? Right. And doing those three little journal prompts at the end of the day, make sure that nothing, well, as much as I possibly can, doesn't slip through the cracks.
Yeah. What do you mean by you go fishing for dysregulation?
Yeah, I go fishing for where my nervous system didn't align with the goals that I had that day. So
Oh,
like
gotcha.
yeah, so like today, for example, it's like an eclipse and all the other stuff, and people are being weird and squirrely. And so I was at the coffee shop, and like one of the baristas came out, and she like knows that I'm into the science and stuff. She was like, "What's going on with this eclipse? Like, is it this and is it that?" And I was, instead of saying, "Well, what do you think?" and mirroring things back to her, I was like,
Mhm.
it's an astronomical event, right? Something that's completely out of your control. It's going to be a really cool thing. Don't look directly into the sun. So, and I was like, oh, wait a second. Like, that's giving a person a fish instead of teaching them how to fish. That's kind
Mm,
of out of my
yeah.
principle for how I want to live my life. So I will go back and I catch that. And what I did is I went back and I said, so it sounds like you were concerned about something and I
Mhm.
didn't hear out what that was. What are you worried about? She goes, I just don't really know what's going to happen. And everybody's like kind of worried. And I'm like, is that worry yours? Like, do you feel like that worry is yours? She goes, oh, no, nope, that's actually not mine. I think that's probably my mom's. And I'm like, awesome. Like, what would letting go of that probably look like? And she goes, it's gone. Like, honestly, it's a thing. It'd probably be cool. It's another world event that I'll live through, but it'll be totally fine. And I'll keep pulling espresso shots. That is me going back and recalibrating my actions to align with my intentions of those days.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. I love that. I love that. On oh, can you tell it's dark now? Like how crazy is it?
It's good. I think I'm like still 30 minutes away from it happening
Oh,
here.
you get it too? I don't know.
We
Like
get like 30% coverage, but
okay, cuz I don't know that. But it's crazy. Um, you always talk about brain spiciness. What is brain
yes.
spiciness?
So like I heard this term, it's not mine, right? So like
Okay.
the 3 pounds of meatloaf between your brain and like it being spicy. So like I was like, oh, there's like neurospiciness. They always like call that like ADHD, but I think everybody's like neurodivergent,
Okay.
genuinely. Like I think like
Okay.
every single person's experiences, emotions, upbringing, attachment, like all the things, no one's brain is random, right? It
Mhm.
all makes sense if you really have an insight and perspective into it. So if
Yeah.
you got some spiciness and your brain is like not really palatable to you and it doesn't feel good to think or it doesn't feel good inside of your body, it's not that you're messed up. You're just human and you haven't learned how to human yet, because none of us got the how to human class, right? So
Rude.
instead of going and shaming yourself and compounding the shit feelings that society's saying, you're fucked up, you should be a millionaire by now, you should have done all these things, you should have, this kind of body, you should have this type of boyfriend, you shouldn't be a single parent, you should, you should all over yourself. Instead of that, you could say, well, fuck that narrative, excuse my language, fuck that narrative. That
Yeah.
doesn't serve me worth a damn. I'm a conscious, intentional creator. Dr. Chris said that I'm a badass. So screw all that. And instead, I'm going to say that I'm going to befriend my shame. So sit down, shut up, shame. How are you today? Tell me about your parts. Like, what part of you, shame, is not being seen, heard, or validated by me? I know I haven't been the best friend to you, but like, talk me through that. That is how you make your brain spiciness so much more palatable. Like,
Mm.
especially the rumination, the overthinking. This is parts work.
Yep.
And I'm not a therapist. Go jam on with your therapist. But a book called No Broken or No Bad Parts is so good about this. And essentially, what parts work really says and internal family systems is that as we grow up, the parts of us that are overstimulated, overregulated, dysregulated, whatever it is, we leave those parts in environments and it scatters like the parts of us that are authentic and genius and all the things. So when you really look at people that have like done that deep sense of work and they move into a room and they've like gone back and collected all of themselves, they don't need to say a damn thing. You're just like, I just want to put my face on your chest for a second and just,
Yep.
you seem awesome. I don't know why, but like, you seem cool. Can we hang? Can I
Right.
smell you? Like, and don't go do those things, but like, you recognize. And I think whenever I say this, I always say, like, there's somebody in your life that you recognize as that person.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Yep.
like, one of those people for me, his name is Nathan Boggs. He's like one of my best friends. Dude owns a chicken farm. I love
Aw.
Nathan to the moon. He is the greatest. He calls himself the chicken lord. But like the first time that I saw him, he's like an old army vet. He's not old, he's like 45, but like he's an army vet, but he's like a philosopher king from like Aristotle, right? So the dude reads philosophy, stoicism, psychology, and neurology books as he farms all day.
Oh
So
my
like
God.
the dude's plugged in.
Right.
So
Right.
the first time that I saw him, my daughter was 2. She runs up to him and like he picks her up at the farmer's market and they're like chilling. He goes, "Is this one yours?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, cool. You guys want to like sit and talk?" And I'm like, "Sure." And for like 3 years at the farmer's market until we moved, my daughter like worked for him and would like build eggs and he and I would talk philosophy for 4 or 5 hours.
Oh my God.
Still to this day, like he's still one of my best friends,
Yeah.
but he's one of those dudes that I'm like, I could call you at 3 a.m. with
Mhm.
problems or to bury a body and he's going to answer.
Yep. Yep. I
You
love
need
that
people like that.
analogy. Yeah. I love that analogy. I actually had the honor of interviewing Dr. Richard Schwartz that yeah, he did a session on me cuz I interview people for these wellness summits for a company I'm hired by. And when we did our interview, like we were talking so much about theory and then he was like, "Do you just want to like do a quick session?" And I'm like, "Yes,
Take
please."
me, take me.
Please,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, oh
Yes.
yeah, we found all kinds of lovely parts. So, okay. If you could maybe give 3 pieces of advice for people that just might not know where to start but do want to make some lasting change, where do you say they start?
Okay. So I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place because the way that I did it is not the way that I would do it. Um,
Mm, tell
right.
me, what way
So
did you do it?
I did it.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I did it the messed up way of like, all right, test, break, shatter, test, break, shatter. And the way that I did it was completely lone wolf mode with me, dollar store pens, dollar store paper, and journals, and unpacking and stealing books from Library Genesis online because I couldn't afford them. And like all of these other different things, right? And just research and trial and error, research, trial and error, research, trial and error, research,
Mm,
trial and error. Because I was in a 40-hour doctorate on top of a residency, on top of being a dad, on top of trying to pay for rent, on top of trying to heal grief, on top of being a single parent, on top of trying to figure out how to pay that. Like it's just so much crap, right?
yeah.
So all of those things, the thing that I would tell people is to not do that. Even though it worked really well for me, I could probably be 10 years, maybe, who knows, if I surrounded myself with people that loved me enough to let me suffer in safety. That's the thing that is going to be the biggest pivot in anyone's life.
Holy shit.
My inner circle of influence now, which includes my chicken farmer brother, like my inner circle, it's just, he's such a good dude. He's such a good guy. Um, but those people love me enough to let me suffer so that I can learn.
Mm,
They don't try to break my patterns. They'll point them out and say, "Hey, I recognize this has come up a few different times.
right.
Can I mirror back what I'm experiencing by watching?" And then they will not try to fix me. They'll just say, "Awesome. How can I support you?"
Yeah.
The people that sit down in the mud with you when you suffer and then stand up with you when you're ready to walk out are the most valuable people. And the thing that's the most messed up is they are every single person that you know. But those people that'll sit with you in the mud don't have to be out of their mud to do that. And
Right.
we always think that we need enlightened sages and scientists and gurus to go do that. I did it with my chicken farmer. I did it with my next door neighbor who's also in my inner circle. Like,
Yeah.
you can do it with anyone. Everyone is a sage, everyone is a guru, everyone is a teacher if you're open to listening. That is where I would tell people to get started, is in community, because community has all the aspects, has
Yeah.
co-regulation, has accountability, has acceptance, has vulnerability, has schedule, has certainty, has predictability, has the capacity to express and group, like text message. Like, there's so much stuff inside of it. That's why I run the communities that I do now, because I know
Right.
just how strong that they are. And you don't have to do online communities, like
Right.
church groups, if that's something that tickles your pickle, like any of those certain things, like they work really well if you work it.
Okay. Ugh, you and I are like the same person on that. I did all my stuff by myself. But
Yeah.
yeah,
And a lot of
it's
people do. Like, if I would have for 6 years surrounded myself with really high caliber people that held me to the standards of my future instead of the limitations of my past, I would still be a version of me that I am today. Sometimes I think, I wonder, I'm like, man, if I didn't do all that solo work, or if I didn't like push my family away, because I for sure pushed my family away because I was super terrified. I didn't know what to
yeah.
do. And I have
Right.
like the most badass brother and the most badass mom on the face of
Mm,
this earth. My grandma, she's fucking just the coolest person. Like, I have such a cool family, and I was so just not okay to them because I was like, oh, I got this. Like, I got the, I don't need any of your help. Like, you don't know, you don't understand what it's like,
yeah.
and I claim those parts of me. And like, my family, like, we have the greatest relationship ever now. Truly. Like,
Yeah.
my mom was just down here. We laugh, we cry. Like, I'm so, so grateful for all of them.
Yeah.
And I know everybody doesn't have that, but the excuse that those people don't exist is a lie. They
Mm,
exist. They're everywhere. Like, I made a post a couple months ago that was talking exactly about this. And I
mm-hmm.
said, as an experiment, just comment if you are one of the people out there that thinks that there's no one else like them or like this thing. And like, the comment got like 75,000 likes and like 20,000 comments. It's like,
Yeah.
they're out there. You just have to ask. And like, sometimes it's the barista, sometimes it's a bird, sometimes it's whatever. But if you're open and receptive to being curious about the opportunities that are around you, you're going to get slapped upside the face with opportunity for expression.
Mm. Oh my gosh. That's such a good point. There was something like, I was going to tell you this off recording, but I woke up today and started watching your videos, and like I just got a big aha moment of like things that I need to like shift. And I'm like, I literally said in my mind, like, Chris is the gift that like I was asking for in the last couple days of like just an answer I needed. And like then I started watching your videos, and it'll make more sense. I can tell you offline, but I'm like, it's just amazing. And I just need to remind myself, because I'm one of those people, I'll do shit by myself all day long. Like,
Yep.
yeah. So, anyways, okay. I know you're short on time, but I always do. I ask this very last question to all of my guests. In your own words, what does the bright side of life mean to you?
The bright side of life is the choice to turn around. When things look dark, there is always a shadow that we're casting out of our own light. And if we can simply look into the light, we'll recognize that we are the light.
Mic drop. Chris, you're
Oh, I was like,
awesome.
oh,
You're awesome. Thank you so much. You guys definitely. Oh, where can people find out more about your work and everything that you have going on?
yeah, www.onlyfans.com / I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding. Don't go do that. All my stuff is at
Oh.
drchrislee.com. All my handles are Dr. Chris Lee. Everything's all there.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you. It was awesome.
I wanna see the light.